She's like a sickness in my brain, a vision standing by the window pane. She ripples through the blinds and leaves me in a daze. It's in the way her body moves me, the way she grabs me and intoxicates, until the signals in my mind forget to operate. Pressure in your fragile skull. I take my pleasure from my alcohol. She'll never give you any time at all. She just comes and goes, you know, and she's got me living in a chemical love, and I try to find a strength.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me for another Coffee and Crime Time. Today, we're going to do something a little different, and I hope you're not upset about it, because I know we've been following the Jeffrey Epstein Netflix series, and I've been trying to kind of fill in the blanks wherever I felt they left things out, but from the response from the first two videos, I kind of figured that I needed to do something else for this video. Not that the responses were bad. For the most part, everyone really liked it and enjoyed it and liked the format and the way we were doing it. However, there was too many of the same kind of comment for me to not address it. And that style of comment was politically motivated. And they were accusing me of being politically biased. But it wasn't consistent the way that I was being called biased. So some people would think I was biased towards Bill Clinton, and then some people thought I was being biased towards Trump, and just that sort of thing. Like I was hiding certain things about one party and bringing out certain things about the other party to try to make somebody look more guilty than somebody else. It's just ridiculous. I have to let you know, it's just ridiculous. First of all, I haven't even really gotten to the part yet where they get into Donald Trump and Bill Clinton, so there wasn't really anything I could say that would suggest I was biased one way or the other. Second of all, to those commenters, have you not been paying attention? When will you learn? Right, left, Republican, Democrat, they're all the same. They have a lot of money, they have a lot of power, they have a lot of influence, and they don't care about you or me. Partisan politics is only a reality for the 99%, the regular people like us. It's this act that the politicians put on to make us think they're fighting, so that we fight, to make us think that we're so divided on these issues that we come at each other and get at eeach other's throats. When in reality, what they're doing behind the scenes, when they're not putting on their play fights, they're slapping each other on the back and drinking their 980-year whiskey and toasting themselves to a job well done. And they're laughing at us. They're laughing at us because the majority of people fall for it. The majority of the people think that one political party has their interests at heart over another political party. And it's not true. I'm sorry. In my opinion, that's how I feel. It's just not true. Jeffrey Epstein's contacts, his connections, his friends, they weren't exclusive to the right or the left. He was an equal opportunity scam artist. And that in itself, to me, is proof that these partisan politics aren't a real thing to the politicians themselves, because they're all friends behind the scene. They all work together behind the scene. I mean, I've got lots of opinions about this, but I'll reserve that for another time, maybe. But in order to illustrate this and kind of prove it to you, I've decided to go through Jeffrey Epstein's little black book and go through the people in there and tell you a little bit more about these people. I've dug deep into their backgrounds. If they're politicians, I've looked into certain policies that they've supported or haven't supported, certain charities that they've donated to, certain charities that they've started. I've found how they connected to Jeffrey Epstein and how they've connected to each other in some cases. Now, does this mean that every single person who was in his little black book is guilty of something or a bad person or even knew him? Not necessarily. Some of them claim that they didn't even know him at all, and they don't know how he got their number, and we have no proof or evidence to say otherwise. But some of them were connected to him. We can prove that they were connected to him. Some of them knew what he was doing. Some of them even continued to affiliate with him after he got convicted. So the things that I talk about in this video aren't things I'm making up. They're not speculations either. They're everything that can be found by the public online if you look hard enough and know where to look. And I want you to pay close attention because I can't necessarily say everything out loud. There's certain inferences that can be drawn from the things I'm saying, and I want you to pay attention to these patterns. Look for things like politics. Look for things like philanthropy, charities, medical research, scientific research, and international ties. Before we get started, though, I do want to have a word from our sponsor, Magellan TV. Magellan TV is a new kind of documentary streaming service. It's Magellan TV's mission to bring you the finest documentaries from around the world, and they believe in the power of telling real stories that have defined the human experience and point the way to the future. Magellan TV was built by documentary filmmakers who share your passion for gripping true stories. They had new programs every single week, selecting only the best shows for their growing collection of over 2,000 of the world's best documentary series and features, and they add more every single week. So if you're interested in history, science, true crime, nature, really anything else, there is something for you on Magellan TV. Magellan TV is available anytime, anywhere on your television, laptop, or mobile device. It's available on Android or iOS. You can stream it to your TV through Apple TV or Roku. Magellan TV is television worth watching. And on that note, I do have a recommendation for you guys today. Parachute Murder Plots is about a woman named Victoria Cilliers who jumped out of a plane at 4,000 feet on Easter Sunday in 2015. When her parachute failed to open, she plummeted and crashed to the ground. Incredibly, she survived, only to discover the shocking truth. Her own husband was the culprit.
Shockingly, the police learned her husband had tried to kill her before.
6 days before the parachute incident, Victoria had smelt gas.
This is one of the most unusual murder plots ever heard here at Winchester Crown Court.
This actually isn't a new documentary. It's been on there for several months. I watched it when it first was new, and I watched it again a couple of days ago because it was so good. So check out Magellan TV. There's a link in the description box if you're interested in having access to the world's best documentaries. You can find them there. Magellan TV truly is television worth watching. They're also offering viewers of this channel a 1-month free subscription, so you can try it out and see for yourself. You're not tied into anything. You're not contracted into anything. You can cancel anytime, but I don't think you're going to want to because there's so many amazing things to watch on there. You won't run out, especially in a month. Thank you so much to Magellan TV for sponsoring this video. Thank you to you guys for watching the sponsor, understanding that the things we talk about sometimes necessitates having a sponsor. And let's get started on the video. Let's get started on spilling all the tea on Jeffrey Epstein's friends in his little black book. By the way, before we get started, I heavily encourage you to look into these things and these people on your own. Because I couldn't put everything in here, right? I really couldn't. I could make an entire hour-long video on almost each and every one of these people, almost. Like 95% of these people I could make an hour-long video on. But so there wasn't an opportunity for me to put everything in. So I definitely encourage you to like look it up yourselves. Maybe if you want to, tell me in the comments that I'm wrong, have something to back that up, because I'm more than willing to listen and learn from you guys. But let's get started. Number 1, Woody Allen. I mean, is anyone surprised? Not only did Epstein have Woody Allen's number in his little black book, but they lived in the same Upper East Side neighborhood. Epstein had a picture of Woody Allen hanging on his wall, and they were often photographed together. Another interesting connection is a woman named Christina Engelhardt. Before she was Jeffrey Epstein's assistant, she was Woody Allen's teenage lover. It was 1976, she was 16, he was 41. They slept together for several years, I guess, even after he met and began dating Mia Farrow. And he would bring Christina into the bedroom with him and his girlfriend Mia. In 1979, he directed and starred in the romantic comedy Manhattan, where he played a 42-year-old television comedy writer who's dating a 17-year-old Dalton student. Dalton School, the same place where Jeffrey Epstein got a job teaching young children when he didn't even have a teaching license. And do we even have to talk about the fact that Woody Allen is currently married to the adopted daughter of his ex-girlfriend, Mia Farrow, a young girl that was basically raised by Allen and said that he was like a father to her, and she was an underage child when he first met her.
And now Alan confirms he is having an affair with Farrow's adopted daughter, who's 21 years old. In a written statement, Alan says, "Regarding my love for Suni, it's real and happily all true. She's lovely, intelligent, sensitive woman who has and continues to turn my life around in a wonderfully positive way." Farrow has a total of 11 children. The Korean-born beauty was adopted by her and second husband, conductor Andre Previn. Suni Previn is currently taking classes at a New Jersey college.
Of course, we have no idea if Mr. Allen plans to marry Suni, but if he does, that would make Mia Farrow his mother-in-law.
And of course, we can't forget the allegations of sexual abuse from his adopted daughter, Dylan Farrow.
At the age of 7, Dylan told her mother, actress Mia Farrow, that Allen had molested her. Allen has always denied the allegations. Dylan Farrow has stood by her story for more than 2 decades now. She first went public back in 2014 with an open letter in the New York Times, and now right here on CBS This Morning.
I loved my father. I respected him. He was my hero. And that doesn't obviously take away from what he did, but it does make the betrayal and the hurt that much more intense.
I wanted to play a clip from 60 Minutes, an interview that he did at the time, where he was asked about that incident. Are you okay with looking at it? You okay?
Isn't it illogical that I'm going to, at the height of a very bitter, acrimonious custody fight, drive up to Connecticut where nobody likes me in the house. I'm with a house full of enemies. I mean, Mia was so enraged at me, and she had gotten all the kids to be angry at me, that I'm going to drive up there and suddenly, on visitation, pick this moment in my life to become a child molester. It's just incredible. I could, if I wanted to be a child molester, I had many opportunities in the past. I could have quietly made a custody settlement with Mia in some way and done it in the future. I mean, you know, it's so insane.
What do you say to that?
I'm really sorry.
Don't apologize. Don't apologize.
I thought I could handle it.
Are you crying because of what he said or seeing him? What is upsetting you?
He's lying, and he's been lying for so long.
Charles Althorpe. So we will call Charles Althorpe by his official fancy pants title, the Earl Spencer. The Earl Spencer is the late Princess Diana's younger brother.
The tribute will now be spoken by the Earl Spencer, Diana, Princess of Wales' younger brother, the 9th Earl Spencer.
I stand before you today, the representative of a family in grief, in a country in mourning, before a world in shock.
He has 7 children from 3 different wives, and his current wife is Karen Gordon, a Canadian philanthropist who is the founder and CEO of Whole Child, an LA-based charity that claims it is their mission to work to improve the lives of orphaned, abandoned, and abused children worldwide. Her husband is listed as one of the directors on the board, and the charity's advisor is a man named Edward W. Scott Jr., who served as Assistant Secretary in the U.S. Department of Transportation during the Carter administration. He's also the founder and chairman emeritus of Friends of the Global Fight, which works with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria internationally. Why am I talking about charities and foundations and philanthropy, right? These all seem like great causes, worthy of donating to. Hashtag save the children. Historically, however, we have seen some people use charities and foundations to cover up illegal activity. We've seen pedophiles use charities to get close to their young victims. I'll give you one example, but understand there are many more, and there isn't enough time in the day to go over them all, which is sad. The Second Mile was a nonprofit organization for underprivileged youth, providing help to at-risk children and support for their parents. It was founded in 1972 by a man named Jerry Sandusky, who was, at the time, the assistant college football coach at Penn State. The Second Mile was praised for the good work it did for years. In 1990, George Bush called it a shining example of charity work. In 2002, Senator Rick Santorum honored Sandusky with an Angels of Adoption Award. Honorary board members on the Second Mile ranged from sports people like Dick Vermelli, ex-Eagles coach Andy Reid, current Eagles coach Arnold Palmer, a famous golfer, also has a drink named after him, ESPN's Matt Millen, to actors like Mark Wahlberg. Some major companies and foundations which gave generously to the Second Mile include Bank of America, PepsiCo, Hershey, State Farm, U.S. Steel Corp, Frito-Lay, and Merck. In 2011, charges were filed against Sandusky, and in 2012, he was charged with 45 counts of sexual abuse against young boys.
Off camera, you'll hear the voice of Sandusky's lawyer prompting his client.
If I say, no, I'm not attracted to boys, that's not the truth, because I'm attracted to young people, boys, girls.
Yeah, but not sexually. You're attracted because you enjoy spending time.
Right, I enjoy, that's what I was trying to say. I enjoy spending time with young people. I enjoy spending time with people. I mean, my two favorite groups are the elderly and the young.
Through the Second Mile Foundation, Sandusky had access to hundreds of boys, most from disadvantaged circumstances, and he abused them when he was supposed to be helping them. He gained their trust and their parents' trust, posing as a philanthropic figure who was there to, save the day, and he abused them, and he made their lives worse. Nonprofit organizations are given more freedom and privacy to operate, sometimes under the guise of doing good. But as we know, not all of them do good. All the people we talk about with Jeffrey Epstein, most of them have foundations and charities, and they just kind of donate money to each other's foundations and charities. And for what? What's the end goal? What are they really paying for? Epstein has his own foundation, one of many, based out of the Virgin Islands, which has donated generously to many U.S.-based enterprises such as NeuroTV and Harvard University's program for evolution dynamics and the Open Cog project, an artificial intelligence software. Many people and corporations have donated to his foundation. As a representative of his foundation, Jeffrey Epstein sat on the Mind, Brain, and Behavior Advisory Committee at Harvard University, and he's been involved in the Santa Fe Institute, the Theoretical Biology Initiative at the Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton, and the Quantum Gravity Program at the University of Pennsylvania. Epstein also served on the Trilateral Commission and the Council on Foreign Relations. Why? Who is he, right? Who is he? Who is he to have all of these important friends, movie stars, politicians, businessmen, intellectuals? Who is he to sit on the boards of all of these charities and be a part of all of these intellectual sort of projects? Obviously, we have Prince Andrew holding prominence in Jeffrey Epstein's little black book. He really wanted to make sure that Jeffrey Epstein could get a hold of him for some reason at any time, day or night. At this point, he's the most well-known member of the royal family to be mixed up with Epstein, but certainly not the only one, as they would like you to believe. And we can discuss his part in depth more later in another video. Once again, I could make an entire video about Prince Andrew and his connection to Epstein, but I think most of us already know the basics. We also have Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, married to Prince Andrew at the time that they knew Jeffrey Epstein, and Epstein actually loaned her $18,000 to pay off some debts. This payment allowed a restructuring of her $5 million debts to take place. Okay, next on the docket is a woman named Dr. Eva Anderson Dubin. She's the founder of the Dubin Breast Center at the Tisch Cancer Institute at Mount Sinai. But before that, she was the in-house physician for 18 years at NBC, and before that, she was a model and a former Miss Sweden, and also Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend for years before she married her current husband, Glenn Dubin, who was a billionaire hedge fund manager in 1994.
Miss Universe visits many different countries all over the world. If you were chosen as Miss Universe, which country would you most like to see for the first time, and why?
I think I would like to go to Australia. That's a country that's very far from Sweden, and I read a lot about Australia, and it seemed to be very nice culture and very nice nature, and then speak English, so it's easy to communicate with them.
Thank you, Miss Sweden.
But Eva didn't break ties with her ex-boothing, Epstein. She and her husband were very close to the convicted sex offender. In 2009, the couple had Epstein to their house in Palm Beach for Thanksgiving. Eva even wrote a letter to his probation officer saying she was 100% comfortable having her then minor children around Epstein, and it's even rumored that he was the godfather to all 3 of their children. Epstein also introduced Eva's husband, Glenn, to Jess Staley, who was then a senior executive at J.P. Morgan Chase & Company. He is now the CEO of Barclays, a massive British bank. After J.P. Morgan, Chase bought control of Dubin's hedge fund. Epstein received a $15 million payment, and according to Virginia Guffrey in her 2016 deposition, Glenn Dubin was the first powerful person Ghislaine Maxwell sent her out to have sex with once she had completed her training. Many others would follow, however, such as Alan Dershowitz, former U.S. Senator George Mitchell, former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, and Jean-Luc Brunel, a French modeling scout. All of the accused parties have denied these allegations. Of course, to be legally accurate, they've all denied these allegations. Moving on to a man named Doug Band. Doug Band is currently a founding partner and president of Terrio, an advisory firm and an investment bank, but he has a long history in politics. He began working at the White House in 1995 as an unpaid intern during the presidency of Bill Clinton. He somehow worked his way up to the White House counsel's staff, where he worked for 4 years before becoming a special assistant to Clinton. He has been called the key architect of the Clinton post-presidency plans, and he created the Clinton Global Initiative.
Alec, I want to just come back to you quickly because it's interesting to me, and this is what I really want to discuss here. People on the internet are saying, people on Twitter are like, this is Whitewater 2.0, this is scandal mongering, like what's the actual scandal here? Like, I guess the question is, there seem to be 2 plausible stories about the Clintons. One is that they involve themselves in shady dealings. They have these hangers-ons who sort of trade on their name for all kinds of unseemly transactional stuff, and Doug Band's an example. That's one possible story. The other story is they're basically like any prominent, wealthy, powerful family in America or figures in America, and our level of scrutiny is 100 times higher because they're the Clintons. So persuade me we're talking about the former and not the latter.
I think it's the scale. I mean, the amount of money we're talking about here is just on a whole different order of magnitude. Because, I mean, a lot of people sort of, do the transactional thing, but few do it with some of the richest people in the world. I mean, we're talking about private jets flying all around to meetings with a lot of petrocrats, and this is just really top-level, Davos-level kind of consorting.
And you guys, you're basically saying there's essentially this kind of tacit favor trading, even if not explicit quid pro quo, which is I give money to Clinton Global Initiative, right, as a as a philanthropic gesture. Bill Clinton endorses me to some Uzbek ruler, and I then get a mineral resources deal with the Uzbek government because Bill Clinton essentially played in that,
which did happen.
That's an exact thing that happens.
The other part of it is just, I think, that the amount of money coming in to the Clinton circle is just on orders of magnitude different. I mean, $100 million in speaking fees. Doug Band is already up to a 200-person company, is living in just a palatial apartment overlooking Central Park South. This is success on a different level than I think we're even used to.
Band arranged for former President Bill Clinton to fly on Epstein's jet to Africa in 2002, 3 years before the Clinton Global Initiative was created. An anonymous source also puts Band at a crazy get-together at Epstein's New York City home in 2005, while he was a top advisor to Bill Clinton. And in 2006, a charity run by Epstein called COUQ gave $25,000 to the Clinton Global Initiative. Band was forced to resign from his position on the Clinton Global Initiative in 2012 after leaked emails surfaced, which showed Band and Chelsea Clinton in a sort of verbal war over who would exert the most influence on Chelsea's parents, Bill and Hillary. Now he teaches a public service class at NYU. Next, we have Andre Balazs. Currently, he's the CEO of Andre Balazs Properties, which includes a number of hotels across the U.S. and residences in New York, especially New York City. In 1980, he served as press secretary to Bess Myers, a Democratic candidate for the Senate from New York State. In 1988, he co-founded Biomatrix with his father, who was a research professor at Harvard Medical School, who also founded the Retina Foundation and the Boston Biomedical Research Institute. In 1988 and 89, Andre invested in various projects such as the Manhattan nightclub called MK, not MK Ultra, but still, as well as the Los Angeles Supper Club, and in 1989 he purchased what would become his first hotel, the Mercer Hotel in Soho. He was also named GQ's Entrepreneur of the Year in 2014, I believe.
When achingly cool pop goddesses such as Lily Allen and Rita Ora start dining at your establishment, you know you're onto a good thing. When the hottest actors around, from Aaron Paul to Bradley Cooper to Tom Cruise. They put my name in there, by the way. I just thought I'd help you out, Bradley. Put yours in instead. When they hang out at your joint, it's clear you got something going on. And when models from Cara Delevingne to Daisy Lowe treat it like they're local, business can't be bad. But when all of them are there and are joined by everyone from David Beckham to Bill Clinton, it's fair to say you've created a full-blown phenomenon. He's been doing this for 25 years, transforming entire neighborhoods in the process, from Hollywood's legendary Chateau Marmont and New York's chic Mercer Hotel to the iconic standard hotels across America. And he's now waved his magic wand over London. Ladies and gentlemen, hailing all the way from Budapest via New York, weighing in at 170 pounds, the man behind the hottest place in town, the Chiltern Firehouse GQ's Entrepreneur of the Year, Andre Balazs.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Dylan. And of course, thank you, my dear friend Matthew. Without none of this would be half as much fun.
Next, we have Alec Baldwin. You guys know who Alec Baldwin is, of course, right? He's a pretty famous actor, one of the Baldwin brothers. He was in 30 Rock. The most well-known Baldwin brother, arguably. In January 2019, he tweeted that Jeffrey Epstein was killed by the Russians, and he tweeted this from the Hilaria and Baldwin Foundation Twitter account. It's a foundation that he runs with his wife. His brother Stephen Baldwin was a part of one of the earliest seasons of Donald Trump's Celebrity Apprentice reality show. As far as what the connection between Jeffrey Epstein and Alec Baldwin might be, we can only guess. It's very likely that Jeffrey Epstein got Alec Baldwin's number from someone else. The thing about Epstein was he was always trying to make connections. And we talk about this a little later, but he would, make a connection, get close to someone, and then he would ask that person, like, okay, who else should I meet? Like, I'm going to be in Paris next week, or I'm going to be in LA next week. Who in that city is cool and interesting, and you think I should meet them? And then he would kind of get referrals from his friends. It literally is like a pyramid scheme. So it's not unlikely that Epstein could have gotten some of these people's numbers from other people and they had no contact at all. We'd have to examine cell phone records and things like that, and nobody's going to put the time in to do that at this point. I mean, I would, but I don't have the resources. Next, we have Steve Bannon, former White House chief strategist under Donald Trump. A former butler of Epstein's who worked in his Paris home claimed that Steve Bannon was a guest there, along with Prince Andrew and Bill and Melinda Gates. This happened in the fall of 2018, and the prior August, Bannon had also been spotted visiting Epstein at his New York City home. This was a year after he stopped working at the White House and several years after Epstein became a convicted sex offender. There is so much to unpack with Steve Bannon. I actually found a video from Now This News on YouTube that was able to explain everything so much better than I ever could, and I'll put the link to the entire video in the description box if you want to see, but I've just inserted some clips here, so enjoy.
Bannon was also director of Biosphere 2, which is not a movie. It was an experiment where humans lived for years inside a giant terrarium in the desert. It did later make it to film as a Pauly Shore movie.
It's been referred to in the past as a planet in a bottle.
Bannon wanted to research the consequences of massive climate change on Earth, as if it were an inevitability. He orchestrated a huge change in the path of the experiment, which caused chaos among the scientists. He was pushed out of the project, but then, against scientists' wishes, was brought back as CEO. He brought federal marshals with him to enforce a court order, turning the whole place over to him. His takeover failed, and Bannon resigned, but not before threatening to ram a scientist's safety report down her redacted throat. Bannon sold his investment firm and made enough money to produce Titus, an adaptation of Shakespeare's Titus Andronicus. It was a critical success, but a total commercial failure. Yet still, around this time, Bannon realized the power of the media.
it's not only not going to get better, it's going to get worse every day.
But Bannon had his eyes on Hollywood. He had discovered the power of the media in controlling people, and he was learning, in turn, to control it. He met with powerful Christians in Hollywood and Washington to discuss a propaganda strategy. He worked on an unreleased film called The Singularity: Resistance is Futile. It tells the story of a world ravaged by scientific hubris going against the will of God. It calls abortion the American eugenics movement. He wanted it to star Mel Gibson. It was never made.
I'm ashamed of that.
Neither was Bannon's rap musical adaptation of Shakespeare's Coriolanus. Word. But for every unproduced film, there are a few produced ones that made it to the straight-to-DVD circuit, all denouncing the evils of liberalism, non-Christianity, the establishment, and Bannon's former employer, big banks. They have interviews with luminaries like Newt Gingrich and Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty. One blames Woodstock attendees for the 2008 financial industry bailout. One, entitled Undefeated, is the story of former Alaska governor and defeated vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin. And then there's the fantasy gold business. Bannon worked with a company that used Chinese labor to earn gold in World of Warcraft. He paid laborers to play the game, then sold that virtual gold for real money. He convinced former employer Goldman Sachs to invest $60 million in the venture. They were eventually sued for ruining World of Warcraft. In 2010, Bannon let a friend move his company into some office space he owned. That friend was Andrew Breitbart.
I'm looking for you, you Occupy freaks with your glitter bombs. Bring it on!
Founder of Breitbart.com, a far-right news outlet that includes sections such as Black Crime. When Andrew Breitbart died suddenly in 2012, Bannon would take over his site. Under Bannon, the site grew further right-wing and supported Ted Cruz. That may have been because some of Cruz's biggest backers, Robert Mercer and his daughter Rebecca, invested millions into the site. In 2014, a New York real estate magnate and WWE Hall of Famer would hire an analyst to put together a documentary on how different outlets treated that magnate.
I am the least racist person you've ever met.
Breitbart has one note: high priority, major supporter of Mr. Trump. In an interview, Bannon would say,
"What we need to do is bitch slap the Republican Party and get those guys, heaving too. And if we have to, we'll take it over."
And the Republican Party felt the same way about Bannon. In 2013, instead of attending CPAC, a major conference for mainstream conservatives, Bannon hosted an event nearby for the uninvited.
I'm embarrassed by your awesomeness.
But Bannon would meet Trump for a second time through Rebecca Mercer, the billionaire backer of Breitbart News and former backer of Ted Cruz, who'd switched allegiances to New York real estate developer and Teen Choice Award nominee Donald Trump.
It's huge.
Fun fact, Rebecca and her father Robert are huge Republican fundraisers who also own a large stockpile of human urine being used for research to help extend human lifespan. A few days after that, Bannon was running Trump's campaign. Other campaign leaders were pushed out. Paul Manafort, an expert political analyst for dictators, and Corey Lewandowski, an expert in assaulting female journalists, didn't make it to the election. But Bannon did. He resigned as CEO of Breitbart to focus on the Trump campaign. He referred to Trump as an imperfect vessel for his own revolution. But he must have been doing something right.
If you think they're going to give you your country back without a fight, you are sadly mistaken.
Bannon would catapult his job of running the campaign into a high-powered office in Trump's administration, chief strategist, a role that requires no Senate confirmation and has the ear of the president. 169 congressmen signed a letter asking President Trump not to appoint Bannon. It is one of the most powerful roles in the world. And Bannon made it even more powerful. The president put out an executive order putting Bannon on the National Security Council, a hugely powerful arm of the government. The same order bumped the Director of National Intelligence and Joint Chiefs of Staff from the council. But the president never wrote that order. He never even read it. It was written by Steve Bannon. It required no approval by the legislative branch or the judicial branch. No other member of the cabinet had to be involved. All Bannon needed was Trump's signature to give himself an immense amount of power. And he got it.
Next, we have Tom Barrack. His first job was working for the law firm of Herbert W. Kalmbach. And this was the law firm that housed President Nixon's personal lawyer. In 1972, Barrack was sent by the firm to Saudi Arabia, where he became close to the Saudi prince. In 1982, he served as the Deputy Undersecretary of the U.S. Department of the Interior during the Reagan administration. In 1985, we find Tom no longer working in politics, but working with the Robert M. Bass Group. He sold Donald Trump a 1/5 stake in the Alexander's department store. In 1988, Trump agreed to pay Tom Barrack $410 million for total ownership of the Plaza Hotel. In 1990, Barrack founded Colony Capital, which had initial investments from major corporations like Bass and GE Cap. He invested $200 million into Middle East real estate and $534 million into non-performing German real estate loans. He also loaned photographer Annie Leibovitz $24 million. Now, Annie Leibovitz is known for photographing high-profile individuals such as Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, Barack Obama, Harvey Weinstein, and Queen Elizabeth. She was also a vocal supporter of Hillary Clinton's run for president and was writing a book which she hoped would end with Clinton as the new president of the United States, and she was devastated when Trump was elected instead.
You'd planned to finish the book, so to speak, with a portrait of Hillary Clinton in the White House.
Yeah, it's almost worse than that. I actually really thought about doing the book. A good reason to do the book at that time, which is literally over a year ago, not that long ago, was with the idea that it would end with Hillary Clinton, which would be, sort of a beginning with, I imagined Hillary Clinton, in the Oval Office, and that was my ending. And let's just say when it didn't happen, when she was not elected I really thought about not doing the book. It was just topsy-turvy, this kind of amusing character, became the president of the United States, and this woman who had all the credentials, should have been the president of the United States. It was a big blow.
Now, talking about controversial people,
okay.
Harvey Weinstein.
Yes.
There's a picture of Weinstein, Bob
Yes.
Weinstein, and with their mother, actually,
Yes.
again going back to the early 2000s.
Yes, because this book is so new. It just came out. I'm like, oh my God, Harvey Weinstein's in there. But I stand by the photograph in some way because he's with his, I think this idea of putting him and his brother with her mother.
It's poignant, actually.
There's a subconscious aspect there of bringing him down to size, basically, with his small mother standing in front of him. I think it says a lot.
It's become a very common question to everybody in your circle. I mean, had you heard much about Harvey Weinstein?
I didn't know the details. That all of this is coming to the surface is so long overdue, and that we're, as a society, that we're recognizing all of this. I mean, I haven't had the most pleasant experiences. I mean, I've seen him more as a bully, in a couple of instances, actually said I wouldn't work on any of his sets anymore.
Did she really answer the question, though? Did she really answer the question of if she knew what Harvey Weinstein had done before she photographed him? She tried to answer it. She stammered a lot. She said she didn't know the details, but she never said exactly what she did know. In 2010, Tom purchased Harvey Weinstein's film production company, Miramax, for $660 million, and in 2016, he sold Miramax to Qatari BN Media for 4 times what he bought it for, and Qatar is a small country in Western Asia. By September of 2011, Tom Barrack was listed as the 833rd richest person in the world and the 335th richest person in the United States, being worth $1.1 billion on the books. I'm sure he was worth more. Oh, and he also owned Neverland Ranch, Michael Jackson's old stomping grounds. In 2016, Tom took on $70 million of Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner's debt at 666 Fifth Avenue. And later, he agreed to reduce Kushner's obligation after a request from Trump himself. Now, there's a series on Netflix, I think it's called Dirty Money or something, but there's 2 seasons at this point, and if you haven't seen Jared Kushner's episode in season 2, it's one of the first ones, I think it's the 2nd or 3rd episode, you need to go ahead and watch that, and you'll understand more about 666 Fifth Avenue and why it was a big deal. In 2017, Colony Capital, owned by Tom Barrack, agreed to invest in the Weinstein Company to help keep it afloat after allegations of sexual misconduct came out against Harvey Weinstein. Later, Colony Capital would withdraw from the deal, and they said they withdrew from the deal because they didn't think that there was a way for them to continue helping out and have Harvey Weinstein not benefit financially, so they pulled out, allegedly. That's what they said. Bill Berkman, New York businessman whose family established the Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society at Harvard University. Here is their mission statement. The Berkman Klein Center's mission is to explore and understand cyberspace, to study its development, dynamics, norms, and standards, and to assess the need or lack thereof for laws and sanctions. We are a research center premised on the observation that what we seek to learn is not already recorded. Our method is to build out into cyberspace, record data as we go, self-study, and share. Our mode is entrepreneurial nonprofit. So here are just some of the projects that the Berkman Klein Center is working on. A lot of it is artificial intelligence kind of stuff. You have a project that they're working on called autonomous vehicles. Americans spend over 290 hours per year driving, making it one of the most common and dangerous points of human-machine interaction. As vehicles are increasingly automated, it becomes not only imperative to improve these human-machine interactions, but also to anticipate what this means for the future of labor. Explore how these vehicles will push the limits of existing governance frameworks as they drive across geographic boundaries. Understand how autonomous vehicles may reinforce existing biases through the inability to drive through unmapped areas, such as the poorest neighborhoods in the global south, and identify the necessary forms of transparency needed to build new accident liability regimes. You've got the global governance and inclusion, and listen to this one, it's interesting. It says AI-based technologies and applications offer tremendous opportunities to build a better world. Advanced systems can be used to enhance educational instruction, improve the efficiency of transportation infrastructure, fight epidemics, support the elderly, and combat corruption, to name just a few. However, AI-based technologies can also deepen existing inequalities and create new ones if not developed and deployed in thoughtful ways with appropriate governance, safeguards, and support mechanisms in place. There's a lot of these projects. I'll link it in the description box if you want to check out all their projects. You know, we got digital health at Harvard, global access and action, harmful speech online, improving information for decision makers, internet governance, internet monitor, internet robustness, and it keeps going. I mean, basically to me, it just felt like they want to replace us with robots, but that's just my opinion. But what I really want to do is read you a portion of this article from 2014 on page 6. It reads, wealthy scion Bill Berkman and his private equity firm Associated Partners are being sued for $4 million by a secretary who claims she was forced to read emails containing revealing pictures of women, including Berkman's wife. Berkman's executive assistant, Nancy Woods, filed suit in Manhattan's Federal District Court, claiming she was forced to review offensive, lewd emails and attachments which subjects were naked or scantily clad women, as part of her job. She claims Berkman emailed the lewd snaps to his colleague, a former Goldman banker, Gerald Cardinal, who helped A-Rod negotiate his 2007 Yankees $275 million contract, and who now runs Redbird Capital Partners. According to the suit, the emails between Berkman and Cardinale included inappropriate pictures of random and unsuspecting women on the street from a favorite bench shared by Berkman and Cardinale, from the subway, and from the East East Hampton seaplane. Pictures in the lawsuit, which appear to be taken without the women's knowledge, include young women in short skirts in Soho. One email sent from Berkman to Cardinale included an image of Berkman's wife. So what I gather is it's a picture taken from behind. So it's a picture of Berkman's wife's butt, and the text reads, "Ronet in a bikini from our trip in Cabo." Another email from Cardinale to Berkman contained a nude image from a New York Magazine photo shoot of Lake Bell, and it reads, "You need to take photos of Ronet in these poses tonight." Cardinale also emailed a picture of a young girl on the subway in a revealing short skirt. The suit claims Berkman regularly sends pornographic material he maintains at Wicker, top secret messenger. Berkman is a scion of a Pittsburgh family that made a fortune in communications. Berkman and his lawyers claim, of course, that these allegations are unsubstantiated. Okay, next we're going to talk about Robin Burley. Robin Burley is an English businessman, entrepreneur, and political donor. He owns and runs a private members-only club in London called 5 Hertford Street, where it's alleged that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had their first date.
We're at 5 Hertford Street, which is Mayfair's most exclusive and exploitative private members club. It charges members about £1,800 a year, and it only pays its kitchen porters £9 an hour.
The kitchen porters have decided to unionize with the IWGB because back in July they gave them like months to be outsourced.
What we're after really is the real London living wage. We're after full occupational sick pay because they only get statutory at the moment, and we're after direct employment. So we want them to stop this outsourcing and bring them back in-house.
Shame on you! Shame on you! We are shaming them in order to end exploitation. These security guards are paid around £300 for coming here. And they are no normal security guards because they don't have badges. They are closing that road, and it's shameful because the police allow that to happen.
Robin Burley, who owns the club, has given Boris Johnson £20,000. He has so much contempt for these people that he cannot even give them the dignity of a real living wage, even though his pal, Boris Johnson, believes in the London living wage. At least he says he does.
The owner of this club is giving £300,000 to UKIP, who are vilifying migrants, blaming them for bringing down wages.
But his kitchen is run by Latin American cleaners here on EU passports.
It also seems he had a brother, Rupert, who disappeared and was presumed to have drowned mysteriously while working in Togo, but his body has never been recovered. Now we move on to the Bismarcks. The Bismarck family is a very old German nobility family. In Epstein's Little Black Book, we can find 3 Bismarcks: Countess Debonair, Count Leopold, and Vanessa. Who I want to talk about right now, though, is the son of Debonair and Leopold, Count Nikolai. Nikolai was born in London, and he has close ties to the royal family. He's been very good friends and is even rumored to have dated Beatrice, who's the daughter of Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson. He studied photography at Parsons in Paris, and he worked as Annie Leibowitz's muse for 2 years. He got himself the nickname Blood-Drinking Count when he claimed to have drank cow's blood for breakfast for 2 weeks while he was on a shoot in Ethiopia. He also started dating a woman who is 13 years older than him, a close friend of his mother's, model Kate Moss. He basically just moved into her London home months after her divorce, and it's alleged that he would hide in her basement when her daughter or staff were home. He reportedly has struggled with substance abuse problems, but it seems like he and Kate are still trying to go strong. They're making it work, or trying to. His father, Count Leopold, is known by a nickname to his friends, Bola, which is exactly how Epstein has him listed in his Little Black Book. His mother, Debonair, is an English socialite and businesswoman who married into the illustrious Bismarck family. Now let's talk about Vanessa, who runs a public relations firm in the States, but who I really want to talk about is her brother. Now this guy's got like 25 names, and most of them are hard to pronounce, so just bear with me. I'm going to do my best. Gottfried Alexander Leopold Graf von Bismarck Schauenhausen, the great-grandson of Germany's Iron Chancellor. He's been involved in some very diverse scandals. To quote an article from The Guardian, he was the eccentric German aristocrat with a penchant for fishnet stockings and lederhosen, whose debauched parties had ended twice in a death. At Oxford, the Count was well known for wild parties at which severed heads of pigs were served and guests toasted each other with blood, while he played host dressed in fishnet stockings. In 1986, during one of these wild parties, Olivia Channon, the daughter of millionaire trade minister Paul Channon, was found dead in Bismarck's bed. Her death was ruled accidental due to a heroin overdose, which Bismarck claimed he had no idea about. He didn't know she was doing drugs. He had nothing to do with her death, and no one ever did connect him to her death. He went to rehab, tried his hand at acting, and after the fall of the Berlin Wall, he moved to London. But then, another tragedy struck within his vicinity. 38-year-old Anthony Casey fell from the roof of Bismarck's home during another wild and crazy party. It was found that Casey had a substantial amount of cocaine in his system and allegedly had told the Count he was feeling unwell while he was asking for the key to the rooftop terrace area right before he fell. Paul Knapman, the coroner who responded to the call, was able to get a look at some of the items in the flat that night, and he described them as bizarre and unusual. Things such as buckets of sex toys, a box containing dozens of syringes, and a butane gas canister. The Count himself died from an apparent drug overdose shortly after. Okay, let's move on. Conrad Black. Conrad Black actually has a connection to Vanity Fair reporter Vicky Ward. He was her ex-husband's uncle and his boss as well. Black was a former media mogul who owned the Daily Telegraph and the Spectator, and at one time he ran a media empire that included the Chicago Sun-Times and the Jerusalem Post. He was convicted in 2007 for siphoning funds from the papers to his own pocket. He served 3.5 years in prison, and in 2018 he wrote a glowing biography on Donald Trump, after which Trump granted him a full presidential pardon and dubbed him the Great Lord Black. According to Vicky Ward, Epstein and Black were tight, and Epstein put a lot of pressure on Black to get Vicky to back off the Vanity Fair story when it broke. Next, we move on to Leon Black, no relation to the dude we just talked about, whose last name is also Black. Leon Black is the billionaire co-founder of Apollo Global Management and chairman of MoMA. Okay, so if you look at this picture, it says that a group wants MoMA donors tied to Jeffrey Epstein off the board. So MoMA is the Museum of Modern Art, and the people they want off the board are Leon Black as well as Glenn Dubin, who we talked about earlier. So there are a lot of connections between a lot of these people and Jeffrey Epstein. Now, this guy is incredibly influential. He has a lot of money, a lot of pull with people, and evidently quite a bit to lose. Almost 10 years after Epstein became a registered sex offender, Leon Black was still inviting him to Apollo's New York offices and letting him pitch personal tax strategies to the firm's executives, which obviously confused them because they knew he was a convicted sex offender. In 2001, Black made Epstein the director of his family's foundation, and it continued to list him as a director on the tax forms until 2012. And the company's since spoken out, and they were like, no, he was off the board in 2007, but due to a clerical error, he just continued to show up on the tax forms for another 5 years, because tax forms aren't serious or anything. Epstein and Black were seen together at a movie screening right before Epstein finished his probation in 2010, and Epstein was also seen at Black's residence in the Hamptons during a 2015 party. It seems like the two met and became friends sometime in the 90s before Leon Black rose to the wealth and power he now holds. Black is also well known in the art world as a collector, holding many valuable pieces in his personal collection, and he's since become very focused on philanthropy. It appears that his concentration in philanthropy is on skin cancer after his wife was diagnosed, which is a really sad story and a great cause. But in 2010, a charity controlled by Black donated $10 million to one of Epstein's many charities called Gratitude America. Next, we have another man with the last name Black, but he is of no relation to either of the two last people with the last name Black. His name is Roy Black, and he was one of Epstein's lawyer, who's also represented the likes of Justin Bieber, Joe Francis of Girls Gone Wild, and Rush Limbaugh. Most notably, however, he defended William Kennedy Smith. Yes, those Kennedys, the Kennedy family, against rape charges in Palm Beach in 1991. And of course, he got his client acquitted. Next, we have David Blaine. The magician put on a private show in 2003 for guests of Jeffrey Epstein and performed tricks for Sergey Brin, founder of Google, Doug Band, and Ghislaine Maxwell, who organized the party and made sure there was plenty of young Victoria's Secret models walking around. I mean, at least she told everyone they were Victoria's Secret models, but who knows. Next, we have Tony Blair, former British Prime Minister. In my opinion, Epstein did not know Tony Blair. But Epstein did know Peter Mandelson, former MP cabinet minister and Blair's spin doctor. Pictures published in 2005 show Epstein and Peter Mandelson strolling along the streets of the Caribbean, shopping and trying on belts. Mandelson's salary at that time would have been about £200,000 a year. Yet in this picture, he's wearing a watch that cost £21,000. Here's a picture of Mandelson with Prince Andrew, too, just for good measure. And as far as Epstein victim Virginia Guffrey knew, Epstein and Tony Blair did not personally know each other, but she is positive that Mandelson knew Epstein because she was introduced to him at one of the many parties her abuser held for his powerful friends. However, she was never asked to give Mandelson a massage. Thank God. In the early 2000s, New York Magazine did a profile on a dinner party that Epstein threw in Bill Clinton's honor, and the pictures show Mandelson rubbing elbows with Google founder Sergey Brin, as well as Donald Trump. Les Wexner was there too, but the guest of honor, Bill Clinton, couldn't make it. Let's move on to Michael Bloomberg, one of the most distasteful people I have ever seen, personally, in my opinion. Michael Bloomberg is most well known for being disgustingly rich and the once mayor of New York City, as well as for a really pathetic attempt to run for president in 2020. Here's Michael Bloomberg smiling for the camera with Ghislaine Maxwell.
Here he is, cozying up to Harvey Weinstein. We can't forget Charlie Rose. Here's one of him and Kevin Spacey. Of course, Kevin Spacey. And here he is with Matt Lauer. And here he is with Bill Clinton.
And this is what a 2014 press release states. New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg recently announced that he will personally fund the creation of 4 charter schools in New York City. The announcement was welcomed by New York financier and education philanthropist Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein, a longtime supporter of Bloomberg, has financed numerous charter schools across the country, including the Maya Angelou schools in Washington, D.C., the highly acclaimed Bard High School Early College in New York City, and the Harlem Link Charter School. In addition to funding charter and Head Start schools, the Jeffrey Epstein VI Foundation continues to be a staunch supporter of cutting-edge science and science education. Jeffrey Epstein also founded the Program for Evolutionary Dynamics at Harvard University in 2003 with a $30 million grant. He's a former member of the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, Rockefeller University, New York Academy of Science, and sits on the board of the Mind, Brain, and Behavior Committee at Harvard University. Bloomberg's ties to Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell is another example of why these political party lines are fake and just intended to divide us and keep us confused and angry. Bloomberg's allegedly a Democrat, but honestly, his policies, his personal habits, such as being a private plane lover and flying all over the place on one of his many private jets, the way most of us would walk someplace, they're very much in opposition to what the Democratic Party claims to stand for. If you're familiar with the musical Hamilton, and love it as much as I do, you'll recall a conversation between Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr. Hamilton asks Burr, "Since when are you a Democratic Republican?" And Burr responds, "Since being one put me on the up and up again." This is the real ugly truth of politics. These people don't join parties that correspond with their beliefs and values. They join whichever side can offer them the most or guarantee their rise in the ranks. They join parties that benefit them. They don't join parties to help you. We also have in Epstein's little black book, The Sultan of Brunei. When Epstein and Bill Clinton flew to Brunei in 2002, it's reported that Epstein met with the Sultan, a man who was sued by 1997's Miss USA for keeping her held captive as a sex slave. Her suit was dismissed because the Sultan had sovereign immunity, which basically means you can literally get away with murder.
He is a sultan worth more than $20 billion, the absolute ruler of Brunei, a small Southeast country, but one of the richest nations per capita in the world. He's courted by America's most powerful leaders.
These visits give me a good opportunity to renew the long-standing and warm friendship.
That friendship is being strained as Brunei installs a new Islamic Sharia law that punishes adultery, abortions, and same-sex relationships with flogging and stoning.
Nobody is going to set foot in that damn hotel until he is out of it.
He is the Sultan, and Hollywood protesters like Jay Leno want the Sultan's money out of the storied Beverly Hills Hotel. The hotel chain, called the Rochester Collection, is partially owned by a Brunei investment agency. Hurt the investment, hurt the Sultan. A law that surprises Jillian Lauren, who says she knows the Sultan like few others. She details in her book, Some Girls, My Life in a Harem, that at 18, she was the mistress of the Sultan's brother for a year and a half in Brunei. One night, Lauren says in her book, she was gifted to the Sultan, who she says broke his own Sharia laws.
I am a witness to the fact that, the Sultan was drinking, was committing adultery, was, not exactly living on the straight and narrow.
For them to then pass this harsh law,
right?
How do you view this?
It's maybe indicative of the way that a lot of people in power behave, which is it's one rule for them and another rule for the rest of the people who don't have so much money and don't have so much power. And that's why I felt compelled to tell my story.
The Sultan and his brother are also well known for spending money like it grows on trees. They live in a $1.5 billion palace, billion, not million, and they have 2,500 cars between the two of them. Two people, 2,500 cars. How would you even drive all those cars? Next, we have Richard Branson, and we all know Richard Branson. I think my first ever prepaid cell phone, like a flip phone, was a Virgin Mobile flip phone. But Richard Branson is the founder of Virgin Group, and he also has an island in the Caribbean, and it's basically right next door to Jeffrey Epstein's island. On this island is a temple called the Elders Temple, where rich and famous people apparently gather to discuss the problems facing the world, like overpopulation, no doubt, because when rich and powerful people get together to talk about the problems of the world, it's always overpopulation. Richard Branson has also had a lot of famous faces visit his island, like the Obama family, who holidayed there with him once. And according to the leaked Podesta emails, Branson is close friends to both Hillary Clinton and John Podesta and was involved in creating the International Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Many members on the board of this foundation have donated heavily to both the Clinton Foundation as well as the Podesta Group. Branson himself is directly connected to the Clinton Global Initiative. And when there were absolgations that the Clintons had raised millions of dollars to build schools in Haiti that were never built, it was the Virgin Group that profiled the story and absolved them of any wrongdoing. Now, as far as the schools in Haiti and the Clinton Foundation and all this jazz, I don't know if those schools were ever built. There's some people that say they were. There's some people that say they weren't. And unless I can hop on a plane and travel to Haiti and ask people, I would really not know. It's just whatever the media wants you to believe, depending on who they support, they'll say. It doesn't matter if they really have proof or evidence. So I don't know if those schools were ever built or if these were false accusations. So I can't say one way or the other if those schools were built. However, I do have this article here which shows that maybe the Clintons' presence in Haiti wasn't exactly welcome. And the second paragraph says Haitians themselves had remarkably little control over these plans. Between April 2010 and October 2011, decisions about how to rebuild Haiti were made not by Haiti's parliament, but by the Interim Haiti Recovery Commission, which Bill Clinton co-chaired. This was supposed to be a Haitian-led body, but in December 2010, the 12 Haitian members of the committee wrote a letter declaring, in reality, Haitian members of the board have one role: to endorse the decisions made by the director and executive committee, which included donors and other Clinton allies. If you guys out there have a clue or have any facts or evidence that supports whether they were or were not built, let me know. I don't have a horse in the game either way. And then remember when Madeleine McCann went missing and the police were going to investigate to see if her parents had played a role in her disappearance? It was Richard Branson who donated £100,000 to the McCann's Legal Defense Fund. In 2014, a friend of Epstein's, Lawrence Krauss, claimed that Jeffrey Epstein would be featured on a panel alongside Richard Branson and Bill Gates to discuss the origin of money in order to raise support for an event being held by Arizona State University. That event was ultimately canceled, and both Bill Gates and Richard Branson claimed their relationship to Epstein had been exaggerated. Branson said he was never going to be on such a panel, but Bill Gates did admit to meeting with Epstein for philanthropic guidance, even though he'd previously denied knowing him at all. While we're on the topic of Bill Gates and philanthropy and Jeffrey Epstein, I have a couple clips I want to play from a YouTube video of this lovely YouTuber. I can't pronounce her name, and I don't want to disrespect her by trying to. She's an excellent YouTuber, very smart, very well spoken. She has a lot of good information. I'm going to link the entire video in the description box, so go over, send her some love, subscribe, watch the full video. I really highly suggest it.
I am recording this video today to join the campaign to expose Bill Gates. But I'll be doing this in a bit of an unconventional way, because whereas a lot of people are scrutinizing Bill Gates, rightly so, and looking at his work and looking at his activism, for the last 10 years, I have been preoccupied with looking at the works and the words of his wife, Melinda Gates, who also is very much a partner in the work. Now, Melinda Gates came to my attention back in 2012, and it was quite a shock for me because I was watching the news and I saw Melinda Gates talking about this massive project she was doing in Africa. So, I kind of listened closer to know exactly what it was. And then she starts to talk about this $5 billion she was trying to raise and campaign for, which was going to be used specifically for family planning and contraceptive drugs and devices in the 69 poorest countries in the world, of which, of course, most of the African countries belong in that category. So this really startled me and really confused me, because the question I was asking myself at the time, 2012, I knew about the Gates and I kind of admired them as these people who did like great work and they were doing amazing things in Africa. So I came to this from a really innocent perspective. Now, she wasn't only planning to kind of encourage people, like, do family planning, space your children. No, that was not what Melinda Gates was doing. Melinda Gates came hand in hand with Pfizer and some other stakeholders. These wealthy Western organizations, they came into Africa, but not only were they telling us to control our population, they came with their own drugs and devices. So Melinda Gates came in with Pfizer, who had at the time come up with this new format or new delivery system of a well-known dangerous contraception, the Depo-Provera, which a lot of people have complained about in the West, which in some cases, like in the United States, you would see FDA warning, black box warning within, with the contraception. But then they came in with this thing, they were calling it the Cyanopress, to show you, here is a picture of the Cyanopress, to show you that they were targeting Africans. Every time that I saw the Cyanopress, it was in the hands of a black woman. Every single time. So the Cyanopress, which contained within it the Depo-Provera, which has already had all kinds of problems in Western countries, which even at the time, when I looked at the website, here is a screenshot at the time of the website from Pfizer when they did the press release about this Cyanopress that they were releasing with the Gates Foundation. They have it clearly written that this device or this drug, the Cyanopress, is not approved and it's not available within the United States or for the United States. So something that wasn't good enough for the United States, that was good enough for them to bring to Africa. Now take a look at this map of where the Gates Foundation and like-minded organizations like FP 2020, which was actually co-founded by the Gates Foundation. This is the map that they released back in 2012 of the 69 countries where they were going to be carrying out their extensive population control project. You see these places marked out in blue? You see how they've marked out most of African countries? This is what I call philanthropic racism. This is the acceptable racism of the 21st century. It was back in 2014 that the Gates Foundation came out and publicly stated that they will no longer be funding abortion. A lot of people clapped for them. A lot of people praised them, and there were all these things that people were embracing them and saying how amazing. But then, again, you peel back the layers. Gates Foundation is in bed, yes, in bed with some of the worst and most notorious abortion organizations in the world, and they continue to be their greatest funders or their highest funders. Take, for example, Marie Stopes International, an organization that is aborting more than 3 million babies a year. By their own records, they are aborting about more than 3 million babies a year. This is a British organization. It is a British organization, yes, but the Gates Foundation were still somehow able to collaborate with them. The Gates Foundation gives them more money than almost anybody else, maybe except the British government, but the Gates Foundation gives them a large chunk of their yearly budget. Marie Stopes then takes that money, goes into African countries, and they are performing abortions, illegal abortions at that, in several countries. Why do I know, or how do I know? Because I have followed the work of Marie Stopes International as well, and on several occasions they have been accused of illegal abortions, and yet the Gates Foundation stands with them. It's also something more sinister that I found out that was happening a couple of months ago. It's about this organization called Genuity. Genuity is an American organization which is little known. The first time I heard about Genuity, I never knew about them. I never heard about them. But then the reason why I took notice of Genuity was because of this particular clinical trial they were doing in Burkina Faso, which is a small West African country. Genuity, this American research organization, was doing a second trimester medical abortion experiment in Burkina Faso, where abortion is not even legal. But what does this have to do with Melinda Gates and the Gates Foundation? So when I started investigating Genuity, I went to their website and I opened their page on their donors. Now, look at what their donor list is like. The very first donor listed by Genuity is the Gates Foundation. So again, the Gates Foundation money not only goes to killing of unborn babies in Africa, but it's also going to the experimentation on African women and the illegal experimentation on African women and second trimester abortions being done in the name of medical research. This is the Gates Foundation. I know that a lot of good people have done great work to expose the Gates Foundation and their involvement with some downright sinister vaccination projects in the developing world. But one particular one struck a chord in me, and I do want to talk about that because it had to do with population control. Back in 2013, in fact, between 2013 and 2015, the World Health Organization was doing this huge vaccine project, anti-tetanus vaccination project, that was targeting particularly young girls and women of reproductive age in Kenya. Some Catholic doctors then intercepted some vials or some bottles of this vaccine and they sent it off to a lab. Now the result came back and they found out that this vaccine was laced with HCG, which in fact, depending on how and at the time it's given, it could be abortive agent. So in other words, the World Health Organization was accused by these Catholic doctors and the Catholic Bishops' Conference by extension of sterilizing and doing population control in their country. But then this was swept under the table or swept under the carpet. What does it have to do with the Gates Foundation? Because I know I'm talking about a World Health Organization program. But then it's not a secret that the Gates Foundation is, in fact, the highest non-governmental donor of the World Health Organization. They are funding a lot of the projects that the World Health Organization wants to do. So the World Health Organization brings out their wish list. The Gates Foundation will just rush in and then fund it through their various funding streams.
And here is a picture of John Brockman, Steve Pinker, Daniel Dennett, Katinka Matson, and Richard Dawkins right before they boarded Epstein's jet to fly to a TED conference in 2002. Since the mid-1960s, John Brockman has been on the cutting edge of scientific ideas and inventions, and he has been called Epstein's intellectual enabler. Brockman is a literary agent, also found in Epstein's Black Book, and he's the founder and president of the EDGE Foundation, a platform meant for conversation where you can ask the big questions about life and death and the world and have them answered by scientists, artists, and technologists. But there are two sides to the EDGE Foundation. One is easily found and is accessible to the public. The other is limited to Brockman's inner circle and involves elaborate billionaire dinners where they can get into the real discussions like population control. Epstein was a part of this annual meeting of the minds. What is really damning is this email sent to one of Brockman's clients in September of 2013. So this email is from Brockman, the literary agent, friend of Jeff Epstein. He manages and represents many authors, and he sent this email to one of his authors. And here's what it reads. Jeffrey Epstein, the billionaire science philanthropist, showed up to this weekend's event by helicopter with his beautiful young assistant from Belarus. He'll be in Cambridge in a couple of weeks, and he asked me who he should meet. You are one of the people I suggested, and I told him I would send you some links. He's the guy who gave Harvard $30 million to set up Martin Nowick. He's been extremely generous in funding projects of many of our friends and clients. He also got into trouble and spent a year in jail in Florida. If he contacts you, it's probably worth your time to meet with him as he's extremely bright and interesting. Last time I visited his house, the largest private residence in New York City, I walked in to find him in a sweatsuit and a British guy in a suit with suspenders, getting foot massages from two young, well-dressed Russian women. After grilling me for a while about cybersecurity, the Brit, named Andy, was commenting on the Swedish authorities and the charges against Julian Assange. According to this email that Brockman sent, this Brit, named Andy, said, quote, "We think they're liberal in Sweden, but it's more like northern England as opposed to southern Europe. In Monaco, Albert works 12 hours a day, but at 9 p.m. when he goes out, he does whatever he wants and nobody cares. But if I do it, I'm in big trouble." Brockman goes on to write in the email, "At that point, I realized the recipient of the foot massage was His Royal Highness, Prince Andrew, the Duke of York. Indeed, a week later, on a slow news day, the cover of the New York Post had a full-page photo of Jeffrey and Andrew walking in Central Park under the headline, 'The Prince and the Perv.' That was the end of Andrew's role at the UK Trade Ambassador." The Prince and the Perv is a really good headline. So the recipient of the email, one of Brockman's then clients, no longer Brockman's client, they felt that Brockman was trying to act almost as Epstein's PR person. Before getting that email, the person had given Brockman the benefit of the doubt that he'd known nothing about Epstein's exploits and criminal activity. But after getting that email, they believed that he not only knew, but he was trying to recruit more people into Epstein's network. If you examine the EDGE Foundation's financial statements between 2001 and 2015, you can see that Jeffrey Epstein donated $638,000 from his various foundations, and many of those years Epstein was the only donor to the EDGE Foundation. Some more evidence that Brockman was Pied Pipering people into Epstein's circle is the fact that so many of his clients found themselves in bed with Epstein. When I said, here's a picture of all these people getting on Epstein's jet, those were Brockman's clients, Steven Pinker, Daniel Dennett. These are authors. The director of MIT's research lab took money from Epstein. Marvin Minsey, an MIT scientist, was one of Epstein's best island buddies, all clients of Brockman. And while we're talking about intellectuals, let's talk about one of the people in Epstein's little black book who I was saddest to see there. Stephen Hawking, one of the most impressive brains the world has ever known. In 2006, he was apparently in the Caribbean for a conference when he decided to pay Epstein a visit on the island. According to the Telegraph, Epstein paid to have a submarine modified for Hawking, who was in a wheelchair because he had never been underwater before. What would Epstein want with all of these free-thinking scientific minds? Well, according to the New York Times, Epstein was very interested in eugenics and cryonics. Cryonics is when you would freeze yourself so you don't die, and then when we have the technology, you bring yourself back and then you're all good again? Allegedly, he told a colleague that he would want his head and penis to be frozen. And he's also had a long fascination with transhumanism, which apparently is just the science of improving the human population through technologies like genetic engineering and artificial intelligence. So it's really just modern day eugenics. Apparently, he told many friends and colleagues that it was his ultimate dream to seed the human race with his DNA by impregnating multiple women on his New Mexico ranch. He hung around with Nobel Prize winner Murray Gell-Mann, also in his little black book. They would give him their knowledge and let him talk about all his crazy ideas, and in exchange, they would get his money to fund their projects. He even helped start Harvard University's program for evolutionary dynamics with an over $6 million donation. And during a meeting of the minds at Harvard once, Epstein openly criticized efforts to reduce starvation and provide health care to the poor because it would increase the risk of overpopulation. But back to the baby ranch for a minute, because hundreds of little Epsteins running around isn't increasing the risk of overpopulation, right? So there was sort of like a rumor going on, or kind of like a little known secret, that there was going to be this elite sperm bank. And it would only be available to those who had the money to pay for the most elite swimmers that came from Nobel Prize winners. It's not really a rumor or an urban legend, though. It did exist. In 1980, the repository for germinal choice opened and claimed to have a thriving stock of dazzling, backflipping, 175 IQ sperm, courtesy of all of these Nobel Prize winners. So apparently Epstein hears about this bank, the sperm bank, and he thinks it sounds like a great idea. But he wants to kind of flip it, like the other way around. So he needs to find impressive female specimens to impregnate so that he can, make his genes thrive and move forward in the world. People thought he was using these parties and dinners to secretly interview and screen women who would potentially go on to carry his babies, most likely against their will, by the way, because I don't know many smart, intellectual, put together, logical women who would sign up for that willingly. And all these people came out and said how disgusted they were by his talks of fixing the world's population using strong genetics. But they only said this after he died, right? Alan Dershowitz, his own lawyer, said he was appalled by this talk, considering the history of Nazis using eugenics. But it didn't stop him from going back and hanging out with Epstein some more, lunches, dinners, parties, airplane rides. He wasn't appalled enough to cut ties. That's pretty much just the tip of the iceberg here. I couldn't go through the entire book. We aren't done going through the list of people he knew. What were we in, like the C's at this point? Or maybe the D's? I was trying to go alphabetically through, even though I did kind of bounce off. We haven't talked about Donald Trump. We haven't talked about Bill Clinton, but we did talk about people who are affiliated with both of these men. What I do want to say, though, is I think that Epstein made a lot of these connections through Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell was very good friends with the Clintons. She was very good friends with Chelsea Clinton. She went to her wedding. So I think Ghislaine brought a lot of these people into his life. And I would like to tell you about all the other people and go deep, but only if you want me to. I don't know if this was boring or if this wasn't really your thing. When it comes down to it, though, I'm not biased when it concerns a predator like Jeffrey Epstein. I don't care who he knew. I don't care what side of the fence the people he knew who helped him and enabled him and gave him money, who he gave money to, all that. I don't care what side they're on. It doesn't affect me. People are people. Political affiliations and ties don't make one group of people better than the other, especially when you're a politician. People who go into politics and seek out jobs in politics are power hungry and selfish in general. That's the kind of personality that goes for a job like that. So I don't expect any politician, whether it be on the right or the left, to be better than any other politician. They all just kind of suck to me, and I don't believe any one of them. So I don't have an agenda, and I don't have somebody's side that I want you to be on. I'm just going to give you the facts as they are. And for those of you who commented and said I was, biased towards Clinton or towards Trump, I would tell you that if you felt I was being biased by hearing the facts, it's probably showing your own biases, because I'm not biased. I don't care what side you're on. If you're guilty, if you're an enabler, you're guilty and you're an enabler. And it doesn't matter whether you're wearing a red tie or a blue one. So that's going to be it for today. Let me know if you guys want more Epstein's Little Black Book. If you want to go deeper, get all the nitty gritty, all the ways they're connected to him, all the ways they're connected to each other. If you do want to see me talk about all of these other people, I will be able to tie it all together in a way that makes more sense at the end, very chronologically, so you can see how all these people and patterns pop up over and over again through the years that Epstein managed to either fool everyone or pay them enough to look the other way. But there are many patterns, there are many connections, and the patterns repeat themselves. What you have to understand is Epstein had his own office at Harvard University. He had the key to his office. Like, he was in very tight with educational institutions, with charitable institutions. But why, right? Because we know that he wasn't a good person. So what was his end goal in getting involved with all of these charities and educational institutions and pretending to do a good thing? It was really about the connections. It was really about donating money to these colleges and programs and research programs so that they would feel that they owed him one. That's how business works, especially when you're a millionaire or a billionaire. Business is very cut and dry. I do this for you. You do this for me. I know this about you. You do this for me, so I don't tell anybody this about you. He set a lot of people up. He recorded things. He taped things. He kept everything in a special secret place where he would have it, and they always knew he had it. And I think that there were certain people who were victims of him that got pulled in by him and kind of fooled. And I think there were certain people that went along with it, either because they don't care about anything but themselves, or they just thought it was fun and they thought it was interesting. It's a sad thing in the world, but when you see a man who appears to be well put together, who has money, who's successful, many people will look at that man and think he's a good guy. He's a good man. He has to be, right? He's got money. He's successful. He has lots of friends in high places. And the amount of money someone has, or the amount of properties they have around the world, or the amount of cars they have, that is not what constitutes whether or not they're a good person. It's like Christian Grey from 50 Shades Grey, right? He was wealthy, handsome, he was so attentive, he could anticipate your every need, right? But basically, he was just a crazy sexual deviant wrapped up in a pretty package. And at the end of the day, there are so many people like that. And they don't get caught, or they get breaks because they're attractive, or they're smooth talking, or they have enough money. It's just very dangerous to make a habit of trusting somebody because they appear to have their shit together, because sometimes they don't. And by the time you figure that out, you're too close and you're already burned by the fire. That's going to be it for today. Thank you guys so much for being here. Remember to check out Magellan TV for some of the best documentaries in the world. Follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter, share this video if you think it's worth sharing. Let me know if you want more. Let me know what you think about what I said. Stay kind, stay beautiful, stay safe, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye.
Battle's going straight down, and that river runs deep, the mountains get steep, and the voices getting too loud. All these feelings I've buried, it's looking like a cemetery. They're coming back from the grave, calling out my name, better say a Hail Mary. Well, you don't know how deep it goes until it's getting you slowly, and so you got to let it go. I got